Hey Dakota, this is Miss Tracy. So let's look at those problems that you sent me. So first we have this problem to simplify. And I don't know which lesson this is from, so I'm hoping that you have that information already since you're the one that sent me the problems. So let's jump into this. So we've got in the numerator, let's simplify the numerator first. We've got 4, and then we've got x squared y to the negative 2. X squared to the negative 2 power. So that would be x to the negative 4 because we multiply, and then y squared, x, and y. So that is the first step in simplifying the numerator. Now we're going to simplify the denominator. We know that anything that's to the 0 power is just 1. So then this would be 2 squared, right? 2 times 1 would be 2. So 2 squared would be 4. Then we have x squared, y to the negative 2, and then x, y. All right, so I'm going to do some elimination here now that I've got them simplified. I've got x squared and x squared. I've got y to the negative 2, y to the negative 2. I've got x and I've got x. I've got y and I've got y, and 4 and 4 match. So that gives me x to the negative 4 y squared over 1, because all of this would equal 1 as my denominator. That's going to be your answer, right? And if it won't take it like this, then we know that a negative 4 would move to the bottom, which would be y squared over x4. So if it doesn't take it like this, try it like this. Okay? Let's look at the next problem. We've got to find m. So the first thing we need to do is find a common denominator, and that's going to be md. So the common denominator is equal to md. So I'm going to multiply everything times md. So md times this, the m's cancel, so I get dx. And md times this, the d's cancel, so I get minus cm. And then md times this, there's no denominator, it's a whole number, so I get d squared m. So now I want to find m, so I'm going to put the m terms on the same side. So plus cm plus cm. These cancel. So dx is equal to d squared m plus cm. So dx, I'm going to factor the m out so I can separate it from the other terms and get it by itself, d squared plus c. If I divide both sides by d squared plus c so I can get m by itself, got to do the same thing to both sides, right? That cancels. So I can say that the value of m is dx over d squared plus c. That's my answer. And you might have to do these in reverse or do these in reverse. Try it, but this is going to be this value over this value. And it's either going to be written like this, or it's going to be written like xd over c plus d squared, or it's going to be written as dx over c plus d squared. Those are all the different ways that you could possibly write it. So try this one, because this is the natural fall technique, and then you could try the alphabetic order, which would be this one. That'd be the next most likely one it would take. All right, so let's do this next problem here. We've got negative 2 times the square root of x plus 4 equals negative 1. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get this radical by itself. So I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. So that gives me negative 2 square root of x is equal to negative 5. Now I have negative 2 times this radical x. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. So it gives me the square root of x is equal to a negative over negative is a positive, right? So 5 over 2. So in order to solve this, I'm going to square everything. That cancels the radical, so x is equal to 25 over 4, because 5 times 5 is 25, and 2 times 2 is 4. And that would be your answer for that. All right, so let's look at this next problem. We're going to factor 9x squared plus 6x plus 1. So the factors of 1 will not create 6x. And we have a lead coefficient. We can't divide everything by 9 because we get a bunch of fractions nobody wants to deal with. But what we can do is multiply 9 times 1. That would be 9, right? So 9 times 1. That is our x term times our constant, which is back here. That's what we're doing. And we need to find two factors of 9 that equal positive 6. All right, so equals 6 is what we need to find. So 3 times 3 is equal to 9, but when we change that to 3 plus 3, it's also equal to 6. So we're going to change this central term to 3x plus 3x. So 9x squared plus 3x plus 3x plus 1. The value of this is not changed. We've just split that middle term into the two factors we need. So now I'm going to factor out this term. I can take a 3x out of both of these, and that leaves 3x plus 1. Now from here, I can't factor that because it is 3x plus 1, right? But what we can do is we can multiply that by 1 and have the same exact values. So what we get is 3x plus 1 times 3x plus 1. Now, I'm not sure which lesson it is, so I couldn't go back and look at the blanks. If you have two blanks, then you're going to write them individually. If you have one blank, then it's 3x plus 1 squared. So if you have two blanks, then you need to write them separate. If you have one blank, then you write it like that, okay? So depending upon what the answer or what the question is asking you to do, two blanks or one blank. All right, let's look at graph y is greater than or equal to x. Or I'm sorry, there's no equal to. Y is greater than x. So there's no equal to, so that means there's a dotted line. So if y is greater than x, we would rewrite that in order to graph it as y is equal to x. So that's the line, but because it's an equality and there's no equal sign, it has to be a dotted line. So that means if y is 0, x is 0. If y is 1, x is 1. So we see that pattern right there, right? This is the line, and then just come in between here and make dots in the same angle. Or you could do dashes, it doesn't matter. As long as you don't make a solid line, because that is part of the answer. All right, now it says y is greater than. Greater than means above. So we want the points above that line. So I'm going to take my highlighter here, and we would just come in and we would shade. And I know you don't have a highlighter on Jupyter, so just take a different color and squiggle something above the dotted line. That's how you would graph that. Let's look at the next one. So here we have y is greater than or equal to 1/2 x plus 1. So this tells me we're going to treat that inequality symbol as if it were the equal sign. And I've gone too far up here. Let me erase that. So that would be, we would treat it like this to graph it. And it does have an equal sign, so we can make a solid line. So plus 2 is going to be our y-intercept. And it's going to be up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. So we follow that same slope. Now we go down 1, back 2, down 1, back 2. And it's a solid line, so you just draw a line from dot to dot. And it's a solid line because of that little line right there. When you got that or equal to, that means the answer could include the line. So now we have the line. Now we're just worried about the inequality symbol. And it says greater than. So we want the line, the values above that line. So we take the highlighter or the different color pen or the same color pen and we just make squiggles and fill in that area above the line. And that's it. That's how you would answer a problem like that. You're just going to indicate that every one of these points is going to make this a true statement. All right, and we don't actually need this at all. That just helps us to see how to graph the line or where the line lives. All right, so now let's simplify this one. So we have brackets and we have parentheses. We got multiplication going on here. We got multiplication going on here. So within the parentheses, we're going to solve first. So -2, this stays the same, parenthesis. This would be a 1. So -1, this would be a 4 minus 4. Now I got another parenthesis. This would be an 8, so -8 minus 2 plus -2. All right, bracket, bracket. We have a -3, that becomes a +3, times negative square, or -2 squared. -2 times -2 is 4. Okay, so that would be a 4. All right, so now we're going to come back and do any multiplication that we see inside, or we're gonna solve what's in parentheses first. -1 minus 4, it's a -5. -8 minus 2, that's a -10. Plus -2. 3 times 4 is 12. All right, now I've got multiplication. Now that everything inside of the parentheses is solved, -5 times -10 is a +50. And plus in a negative, positive and a negative, that's going to be a -2. And then that's going to be times 12. Got one more to solve. -2 times 50 minus 2, which is 48. That should be a bracket, sorry, times 12. That's where we are now. We are at -2 times 48 times 12. So that's all we have to do. And I'm going to do that on the calculator because my brain shuts off at a certain point when the numbers get really big. So 2 negative times 48 times 12. Negative 100 or 1,152. That should be your answer. All right, let's look at the next one. We're going to simplify this. Now we know in order to simplify it, we cannot have a radical in the denominator. So we're going to multiply this by what the denominator is. And we can get away with that because when we put this value over itself, that becomes the value of 1, right? So that equals 1. Whatever that value is the same thing on the bottom. And we know the same thing on the top and the bottom in a fraction is equal to 1. It's the same thing as if we put 4 over 4. That equals 1. Same value over itself is 1. And we know that when we multiply anything, let's say if we were to multiply 4 times 1, the answer is 4. This value stays the same when we multiply by 1. So because this is the value of 1, this is not changing its value. It's It's just changing its format. So that's what we're going to do first. We're going to say 2 times the square root of 2. That's 2 times the square root of 2. Plus square root of 3 times the square root of 6 times the square root of 2. So that's going to be 3 times the square root, 6 times 2, that's going to be 12. Because they have that radical sign in common. That's what ties them together. That's why we multiply them. And then that's going to be over square root of 2 times square root of 2, which is the square root of 4, which we know equals 2. So now that we have this, we're going to simplify if we can. So this looks like it can be simplified. So I know that I can get 2 times the square root of 2 plus 3 times square root of 4 times 3, because 4 times 3 is 12. Now I can take this out and put this as a 2 and multiply. And all of that is still over 2. So that becomes 2 times the square root of 2 plus 6 times the square root of 3, all over 2. But I'm not done yet, because this is divisible into 2 and into 6. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. And 1 times the square root of 2, we just write it as the square root of 2. Plus 6 divided by 2 is 3 times the square root of 3. That's as far as we can go. That's your answer. All right, that is all we have for that you sent me as problems you needed to solve. If you have any questions, again, please ask. If you have anything that the system won't take, let me know. Since I didn't know which lesson they were in, I wasn't able to go back and check them. So I will see you on Thursday. Have a great week.